So I'm going to jump down to my flower here, and we're going to continue on down the list to add different things to this. So I'm going to double click on my shape, and coming over here, let me go in and move this all over so we can have the window up. There we go. So with this, we've already done our bevel and emboss and our stroke. I'm going to do with my inner shadow. Okay. And an inner shadow kind of acts like a bevel and emboss, but it doesn't actually give me my angled size here. Basically what the inner shadow does is what a normal drop shadow would do. On the outside, an inner shadow just does on the inside. So it's basically implying that it's kind of like inverted, so the light's kind of casting a shadow into this little flower right here. And again, we choose our shadow color. So if I would like a red shadow color coming in, I can shadow that in red, and then I can control the opacity, light or dark, and I can control the distance. And the distance is basically where the light is coming in. So if it's lower on the horizon, it's going to cast a much longer distance shadow. The shorter the distance there, the shorter the distance is, so it's going to cast a much smaller shadow right there. So I don't want to do it too far over. Then I can go ahead and do the size. And the size is basically the blur. If I have a very small size, it's going to give me a really tight shadow. And the bigger the size is actually more of the blur. Okay? And the choke is really weird. Okay? The choke is basically taking the feathered edge off. Okay? So think of it as having a sharp edge or not having a sharp edge. Okay? So the choke, I know distance, choke, and size, it's kind of weird terminology, but anyway. So the choke just takes the edge off. Okay? Hard choke is going to choke it really hard, and it's going to be a defined edge. No choke whatsoever. There we have it. And yet again, when we go through here, we can control the light. This light's a little different, because we're not talking about light that's going to operate on 3 different axes here. We're just going ahead and we're just going to rotate around a circle. So we can't have this light come up overhead like we could with a bevel and emboss. This is just this little wand that I can just run around. And as I do that, you see it's changing absolutely everything because I have it set to global light. I can't drag the light over the top, but I can control the direction of the light. In this case, I may want to go in and use a dramatic effect here, as if none of this is dramatic. I want to go in and turn off global light, so I'm only affecting this particular image right there. So I have my inner shadow coming in from the opposite direction. Not that big of a deal because we're not going to get like super picky on all the shadow directions, but there we have it. And now we also can go in and of course we have all of our contours. And our contours are also going to go ahead and control on how this basically works. And you have to kind of like wrap your brain around how these things are because we're not dealing with kind of the extrusion of the object, we're dealing with kind of the intrusion of the object with the contours. So in essence, they're working exactly backwards of what we know this to be. Takes a little bit of time to get used to this, and most people just go through and click until they find something, and then they can't do it ever again. But we'll show you how to save your bacon, if we had bacon. Anyway, so this allows us to go in and we can get some really cool effects here just by going through and seeing how that light is hitting that particular contour. And then the noise feature allows us to go in and do little crusty bits on there. And little crusty bits there show you those little edges. So it's pretty cool. You know, I can have them nice and smooth, or I can have them very noisy. Yeah. So that's the inner shadow. Yeah, technical terms, little crusty bits. Not to be confused with bacon bits, the crusty bits. Yeah. I mean, we'll show you crackly bits, but those are the dissolve, and these are little crusty bits. We don't have time to get into all this terminology here. We'll just keep it simple, okay?